Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I own 52 units of real estate and I help coach people to buy their first multifamily deal. So today I want to talk about how much it costs for me to live in Southern California, Los Angeles, California specifically, as I'd say middle class to upper middle class lifestyle. So my wife and I were both pharmacists by day, and at night I'm a real estate investor, and I like to kind of share my journey on YouTube, as you can tell. But I've been kind of thinking about how much does it cost to live in California. Obviously I was born and raised in California. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I lived there for a bit, and then now I relocated to Southern California, and that's where I currently live. But both areas, if I'm being honest, are expensive, right? They're both expensive. So just want to give a breakdown of my costs. And like I said, I live in a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house, about 1,700 square foot. It's a newer build property. And I didn't want to buy something old because in Los Angeles, most of the houses were built in like the 1950s-ish. And, if I bought the house, it'd have the weird dated layout and you'd have to put in a lot of money to renovate the property. So I just wanted to not deal with renovations. Just want to buy something decent, move in, turnkey, do nothing. So that was my objective. And so let me break down my cost. So, and I'm going to throw in the cost of like future kids as well. So my mortgage, property tax, insurance, HOA, utilities, all in, we're at $7,500 a month. And why is that so high? So we bought our house for $900,000. We put 5% down. So at the time, I was cash poor after, buying a bunch of real estate. So we put about $45,000 down. And when you put 5% down, you pay PMI. So our I think our mortgage is about, so property or principal and interest is about $5,500 a month. And the property tax is roughly about $1,000 a month. So that's already $6,500. Insurance is very little because I have an HOA. So my insurance is like $600 a year. My HOA is $600 a month, well, $500 a month, excuse me. And utilities, we have solar panels on our house. We have a water bill, we have electric bill, and then, internet. So roughly it's about $7,500 a month. So let's say $500 a month right now. And then, okay, that's the major expense, obviously, between me, my wife and I, Christine and I. My next expense is, and right now we split it half-half. So I pay about $3,700, she pays about $3,700 into our joint accounts. The next expense is, obviously health insurance right now. We get through our work, so it's pretty cheap. But if I were to get on my own, right, if I were to go through, covered California, assuming that still exists and whatnot, it was about $300 a month for like a high deductible health plan through like Kaiser, for example. My car insurance is about $200 a month. Unfortunately, car insurance is very expensive in Los Angeles because of the density, and there's a lot of accidents here and a lot of uninsured people because insurance is so expensive, right? And mine's $200 a month, and I've never been in an accident. I never had a speeding ticket, and I've been driving for like 18 years, right? So if you got speeding tickets, if you got into accidents, your insurance is probably way higher. So $200 a month there. My other outside living expense, I would say I probably spend discretionally maybe $1,000 a month at most, and I've always been that way pretty consistently. Obviously if I travel that month, my expense will be a little bit higher, or if I buy something big, my expense is a little bit higher. But let's just say on average that's about $1,500 a month on average. So if you kind of add this all up, I had $7,500 for my mortgage, $1,500 for my living expense, so that's already $9,000. And then my car insurance, all that, so let's just call it about $10,000 a month. And that's just for like Christine and I right now. Let's call it $10K a month. And then the average cost of a kid in Los Angeles, California per month averaged out is about $2,000 per month per kid. So that's another, $2,000. So let's just call it our living expense right now. So right now, without kids, it's about $10,000 a month is how much we are living off of. And that's about roughly half our take-home income. So we're about 50 to like 60% of our take-home income goes to all of our living expenses. Whatever is left over, so whether it's 40% or 50%, we basically are investing that. We're saving that in an emergency fund, and or we're saving it for our next house that we're going to buy. So that's kind of the breakdown. So as you kind of saw here, it's about $10,000 a month, and I would say that's about average for like a middle class lifestyle. And keep in mind, my house is on the cheaper end, I would say, and especially for California. Like, I got mine for $900. You can easily get a house for $1.5 to $2 million. What kind of shot my deal in the foot was, I got it in 2024, so my interest rate 6.5%. So I'm paying 6.5% interest rate. I have PMI on there, and then I have a high HOA of $500 a month, but it covers my insurance, and then my gym and pool and all that. So it does save you a little bit of money there, but once again, HOA, you're paying a bunch of money. They're going to force things on you, and they do nothing, right? That's why HOA has a bad rap. They do nothing. You pay them, they do nothing, and they fine you, right? Kind of going through that on one of my properties right now, where I have a very strict board of directors, and they're like kind of targeting my rental property and my tenants. Different video about that. But as you can see, it's about $10,000 a month. And then once you throw in kids in the picture, it's $15,000, about $14,000 to $15,000 a month on average. So this is why it's expensive to live in California, right? That's why a lot of people, you see in the headlines that they're moving to Vegas, or Arizona, Texas, because it's cheaper, right? It's cheaper to live there. And this is factoring like not even like private school. Like if you go to private school, this is just a kid going to public school. So, I would say summarize $10,000 right now, $15,000 once we have kids. So think this is probably middle class, upper middle class lifestyle. Like, we don't go on extravagant vacations. We don't do anything crazy. We don't like buy a lot of things. We don't like spend money frivolously. Like, we're very intentional how we spend, but it's still like $10,000. And as you can tell, the majority of that is the mortgage in the house. $7,500 is that. So, if you can move to a cheaper state, lower your expenses, easier to retire, right? But then you have to be okay with living in a different state. Like, you have to be okay living in Vegas. You have to be okay with living in Arizona. To each their own. Like, right now, I like to live in California. So with that, like I said, the house is like $900,000, and obviously I can afford a bigger house of $1.5 to $2 million, but I know it's going to raise my living expense. It's be harder for me to retire. It's going to be harder for me to pay off my house. But this is typical average, and it's kind of crazy, right? So that's why, like, I talk about this a lot in videos. Like, when I'm ready to retire, I want to pay off my house, sell a property, pay off my house, and now I go from $700 a month to $2,000 a month. So I basically lower my living expense by almost half. So right, I said $10,000, right? $10,000 was my living expense. If I wipe off my mortgage, now my living expense is $4,500 a month. So I went from $10,000 to $4,500 a month. If I have kids, maybe it's $10,000 a month. So at that point, it sounds more manageable. So no kids, I just need $5,000 a month. With kids, I need $10,000 a month. And I'll be honest, I think $10,000 a month is pretty high or $2,000 a month per kid is pretty high. I guess I'll find out. But like, if you're very intentional how you spend your money. Like, I get it, activities are expensive, but there's a lot of activities you can do for free. Like, I get it, swim lessons cost money, but you can do swim lessons, and then you can practice on your own for free at our pool. If you do Taekwondo, it's expensive, right? Like, I did Taekwondo, but I may or may not have liked it. So it can be as expensive as you want it, or it can be as cheap as you want it. And there's a lot of free things they can do, and there's a lot of things that you have to pay. So it's really that balance, right? But like I said, no kids, live off like $5,000 a month with a paid off house, not bad. 10,000, that's more doable. So that's why it makes sense for me to take debt off the table. Like, my mortgage is my basic expense. If I can wipe that off, it's more comfortable, easier for me to still live my lifestyle, middle class, upper middle class lifestyle, and essentially not have to work. Like, still maintain the same lifestyle without having to work. And if once I have kids, my expense will go up by another $5,000. Well, I can literally sell another single family home, use that and pay off both my apartment complexes, which roughly comes out to be about $700,000. So I can sell another single family home, probably to put some additional money in there potentially, pay off both my apartment complexes. How much of the mortgage on my 2 apartments? It's $5,000 a month. So there you go. My cash flow, my apartments go up by $5,000 a month. My expenses go up by $5,000 a month. So the order of sequence is, if I want to retire and not work, I have to sell a house, pay off my primary residence, save $5,000 a month in expenses. If I want, once I have kid 1, kid 2, and let's just say I'm feeling stretched for money, I have to sell another property and use that to wipe off debt on those 2 apartments. And now my cash flow increased by $5,000 a month. So it's a wash. My expenses increased by $5,000, but my income increased by $5,000. So that's the power of that. And at that point, if I can live off $10,000 a month and not have to work, like, you're at a pretty good life. And the older I'm getting and the more wealth I'm building, like, it's kind of funny. Like, in my 20s, I really, really enjoyed eating out. Really, really enjoyed. Now that I'm like older, I actually kind of enjoy cooking at home more, because you can cook it. It's a little cleaner, obviously cheaper, and it's fun to experiment. But don't get me wrong, we go out to eat too. For like a really unique thing that we can't cook ourselves, like, we still like to go out and eat, right? But I'm just saying, there's a ways to like be cost effective, like, about things, intentional, and still enjoy it, right? Like, if I want to eat a nice steak dinner, I'll go out to a Michelin star restaurant. If I want to eat a nice steak dinner at home, I can cook a steak at home too. So it's really about that choice. And like I said, there's some people, and I may get to that point too, where like, you know what, I want to live in a nice big house, but I don't want to afford California prices. That's why a lot of people move to Vegas. Like, you can get a mansion for like $1 million, pre-COVID, and you can have a luxurious lifestyle. And you could, with that luxurious lifestyle, still get a big house, and at a reasonable price. But for me, I'd rather live in a smaller house in an area that I prefer to be in. That's okay, because I don't want to be a slave to my house. And like you said, you don't want too much house either, because if you have too much house, you're forced to buy more furniture, you're forced to buy more things, you're going to fill up that house. Whereas if I have a smaller house, it forces me not to buy things, and it forces me to be very intentional. When I buy something, I need to throw something away. Or like, if I want to buy, I'm really intentional about it. Versus if I had a big house, whatever, just buy everything. So it's very intentional. And then also for me, eventually when I get a maid to clean my house, if it's a smaller house, it's cheaper to clean a small house versus a bigger house. So, anyways, just wanted to kind of share my thoughts about how much it costs to live in California. So to summarize, about, in my mind, upper middle class lifestyle is about, assuming you have a mortgage, is about $10,000 a month to $15,000 a month. Is the average. So it is expensive to live here. Like, if we're living off $15,000 a month, that's almost all of our income, right? Like, it's almost all of our income, and you have a little bit left over to like save and invest. That's why a lot of pharmacists, despite dual income and they make good income, they have to work a lot of overtime. They work a lot, multiple jobs, because their living expenses like 15 to 20K, and they're feeling stretched. So for me, I always never want to feel stretched. That's why, like, I purposely bought a house that was smaller. I purposely bought a house that I know I can pay off completely. I purposely got a smaller house, because I could have gotten a 4-bedroom house, a 5-bedroom house, because I knew that I wanted to restrict myself. I knew I wanted, ideally 2 kids. If I have a 3rd kid, then, well, shoot, maybe I gotta upgrade my house, or have kids double up in a room. But if the house is paid off, I can sell that and take all the money tax free, and then trade up to the bigger house, and then have a smaller mortgage. But obviously my property tax will go up, insurance will probably go up, but it's a trade-off that you have to make. So, anyways, just wanted to give my thoughts on how much it costs to live in California, and how that factors into like your FIRE number, obviously, and why paying off debt for me is a big lever I'm going to pull in order to retire, right? Between wiping off my primary residence, and between wiping off debt on my apartments, which is like not even 30 years fixed, right? Most apartment debt is 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year. So at most 10 years. So if you pay it off, you have to worry every 10 years about doing a cash out refinance or refinancing and all that stuff. You just have a paid off house, apartment, and then you're not stressed. So I can increase my cash flow significantly. Then anything else after that is like literally a cherry on top. Like, if my property is just pumping out the cash flow and I'm saving money, I can use it to go buy another property. But now, as you can kind of tell, I'm like heavily leaning towards like a portfolio where it's like mostly paid off, right? Like, paying off most of my portfolio, where my primary residence is paid off and my 2 apartment complexes are paid off. So it's about 47 units out of 50 units that are paid off, free and clear. at that point, you know, I took a lot of debt off the table, and then any property that I buy moving forward, I'll continue to, you know, just like pay them off or buy them. So it's kind of like more of the Dave Ramsey approach in terms of like preservation, because I know now buying another apartment complex isn't gonna make me happier, but if I paid off one of my apartment complexes, it would make me happier. So, and don't get me wrong, it goes in phases. I could pay off my 2 apartments, get so much cash flow that I save up a down payment to buy another apartment complex, and then work on paying that apartment off. So, anyways, sorry for the side tangent. Hopefully, you found this video valuable. Let me know what questions you have. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want one-on-one coaching for real estate mentorship or consultation, click on my link tree down below. From there, you can send me an email. Otherwise, please like, comment, subscribe. Hope to see you next one. Thank you.